Hi, welcome to this demo video of Landscape Elements. I'll just be going over the rocks, the annotations, the material editor, underneath the hood of the material editor, and then a scene, setting up some of the presets on here. Okay, so for right now there's 6 rocks. I'll add more later, most likely, but at the time of this recording and conception, there's 6. This first one, actually all of them, they all have multi-resolution modifiers, because some of the maps actually benefit from more geometry or more defined geometry, or like sharper angles or softer angles, just more complex textures in general. And right here we have the annotations, which is pretty much a document of every or a documentation of every option on here. And this also exists right here, so when you perhaps go to a different screen, you'll always have the node editor with you. I mean, if you want to actually do anything with the rocks, you'll have the node editor open, and on the left side you'll have all the options, well, not the options, but the documentation for it. So first I will show underneath the hood of at least this particular rock, and it does go for all these other rocks as well. We have the rock material, the mud material, moss, and snow. And up here we have the dirt factor, or mud factor, moss factor, and snow factor. So looking at it, you can sort of tell how it works if you're at least somewhat familiar with nodes. This is actually quite simple. Okay, so this one. Okay, so for this first one, this is our first rock. For the first option, we have rock color contrast, which is useful for diagnosing any sort of visuals, or it's helpful for developing the look of the overlay materials in case you actually don't want to see the rock itself. Rock dust is a sort of a specularity map, I believe. Makes it a bit more dusty. Rock saturation. It saturates the rock, makes it darker, and adds a layer of coat over it, which is water. So it acts like sort of like when an object has water, or is soaked in water, or has water over it, the light rays will bounce off of the water instead of off of the rock, and so it will look a bit darker because of that. Rock detail, this is the normal map. You can turn that up to 4, 0, 4. You can just overclock it. The dirt is already enabled. That is right here. More dirt, we'll just basically raise the dirt up. Pull it back down. A dirt color, we'll change the color of the dirt. You can make it green if you wanted to. Dirt detail, that also affects the normal map of the dirt. Moss. This is the moss overlay. it's sort of like a slightly yellowish moss, sort of like a desaturated one. And you can make it patchy. There's also moss saturation, which will make it very soggy and wet, and it will look more like a mustard green, I believe. Snow. So this is the snow overlay. Snow patches. The snow patches, we can turn that on, and that will be the snow factor. We can make it patchy. The snow patches option is just on or off. And this is on, off. The factor can be overclocked as well to make it more patchy. You can actually put this at like a 1 or 2 to make big patches in it. And those are a bit hard to see, so we will make that easier to see. So there's that. The snow subsurface scattering, this doesn't really need to be messed with, but you can turn it off to make a sort of more fake snow if you wanted to. But I'm not sure what the point of that would be. It's mainly for increasing the snow subsurface scattering. These right here do require some explanation. So right now, the way these work is that a 0 represents a top input and the Y represents a bottom input of a mix color node. And so having this at an X and a Z, because when it's 0 it's basically an X and not a Y. So the Z is essentially overriding the inputs of the X and Y because it's at 100%. And so in order to get this part to show through, like let's say 0.5, you would actually have to turn this down to maybe around 0.5. And then we could turn off the rock, and then actually turn this all the way off. And then you would have it a little bit of both in X and Y. So we have the X, Y. So we have it X direction. We also have it on the Y direction. And so if we turn it all the way down, we have the X direction, Y, we have the Y direction. And so it's preset at Z because snow generally falls perpendicular to the ground, believe it or not. Snow thickness, that's just to make it sort of more cakey at the top, hence the thickness. Sort of down here, it's a bit thinner and it looks a bit more melted. So you can have like a nice 0.5 value. If you change the colors and you forget what the original color is, they are right here. All of the preset values are right here. I might implement automatic values for these. Like you can just hook up a value box to it or something, but I've tried that before. Didn't work all that well. And even so, you could still just do Control Z or just actually refer to this table. That's pretty much it. Okay, so the next scene is going to be for actually using the rock in a scene. Okay, so here's an actual scene. There is a small not even a pond, a puddle of water with some volume shaders plugged into it, so it's a bit murky, as if there's mud swirled around, like when you I don't know, put mud in your glass of water and then mix it, it turns like a nice uniform brown. There's also dirt and autumn leaves and sort of a overcast HDR and a dim sun lamp. So we'll go ahead and append master file, and we have, you can either do like a collection, which would be igneous, metamorphic, or an object, which I will do, because since these are intended as decoration rocks, so really sort of batch importing them isn't really all that necessary. We'll use the third one, third metamorphic rock. Grab that. Put this here. Actually, put this in the water, like so. And put it over there. Okay, that looks fine. Okay, so home. Alright, so ignore this part, that's irrelevant. This is just a demo. So what the primary thing we want to do is basically make this rock wet and perhaps crank up the dirt so we can pull it up a bit. And maybe saturate the dirt a good amount, and then definitely saturate the rock like that, and include maybe moss, because it's like a temperate rainforest area, and so rocks are going to grow moss on them, and we're going to have it a bit saturated as well, and that does not look too bad. And I'll have pictures of the final result on the product website. So yeah, that's mostly it.